let's get started. Let me get myself on screen here. Hello, it's me. I'm Andrew Cotlar from TRG Arts. I'm a consulting analyst, and I'm excited. We're going to talk about second date strategies today with our patrons. And let me introduce my friend Grace.
Hello, happy to be with you all. I'm also a consulting analyst at TRG Arts.
Fantastic. Thanks, Grace. Well, we are excited to speak on this topic today, right? You may say second date strategy. That doesn't make any sense with our customers. But when we're thinking about love and relationships, let me be your love advocate today. It takes 19 minutes for the average American to know if they want a second date with a potential partner. So that's talking about dating, obviously, but we have to consider for our patrons, right? The customers that keep our businesses running. When do they decide whether they're going to return for that second date, that second ticket buying experience, event, whatever it is? So 19 minutes is not very long. So as we're thinking about our customers' experiences from the minute they purchase that ticket online, perhaps, to the minute they drive into your parking lot or step off of the metro, when they greet their ushers, when are they making that decision whether they're going to come back or not? And it begs the question, what is your team's second date strategy with patrons? At what point do you invite them to come back? Because at the end of the day, isn't that what marketing is? It's an invitation to say, hey, we like you. You came and saw and experienced our thing, our event. We think you would like this next thing, right? So what is your team's second date strategy? That's what we want you to consider during this hour. And we would love for you to come out of this conversation with a strategy, right? What are you doing to invite back those first-time ticket buyers? Okay. So ask yourself that question as we go, and we'll invite you to chat with Grace and I after any time on this topic. But so who are those people? So what is a nudophile and why should we care about them? Nudophile is this industry term that we use at TRG Arts. You may use it in your shop, you may not. What it means is it's a first-time single ticket buyer, right? We need to be able to identify these people, these first-time single ticket buyers, so that we can treat them like we just had a first date with them. So they're brand new to our database, right? They've never stepped inside of our doors before. They've never bought a ticket even 5, 10 years ago, right? They're brand new to us. And we get a lot of them. We meet a lot of them at blockbuster shows, big musicals, tentpole titles, and of course, holiday programming, your Christmas carols, your nutcrackers. They just tend to bring in a lot of new audiences. So they're great opportunities to really consider how you're going to, score that next date. How are you going to get them back into your space? And it all comes down to our evolution of a patron. So if you've ever participated in a TRG activity, event, webinar, you've probably seen this. We joke that we're going to get tattoos of the evolution of a patron ladder because it really works and it's all about loyalty. And boil it down to this. You wouldn't ask someone to marry you on the first date, right? That would be way too much too soon. You want to get to know each other. You want to see what you have in common, what you like about each other, what you might not like about each other, whatever. But the whole goal is just to get to that second date. So right now we're only focusing on new single ticket buyers, and we're trying to get them up to that next step on the ladder to become a repeat ticket buyer, right? So you're not going to say to someone on the first date, hey, do you want to come on this Alaskan cruise with my family? I think that this is a great time for me to invite you on that. No. We just want to get them back into the next date, to the next event. We don't want to pop the question or ask them to become a subscriber or a donor right away. We're just getting to know each other, and we think you're going to like us, okay? So it's all about right person, right message, right time. That's why we do everything we do pretty much at TRG to make sure that we're talking with our patrons with the right message at the right time, just to get them back into our space, right? And as Grace and I will show, the more times they return, the longer they'll stay, and the more money they'll spend with you because we like each other, right? Great. So here's what we know from industry averages. So the industry average, this is a sample of about 130 organizations over a 5-year period. And we found that 66% of single ticket buyers, so leave subscribers out of this for a second, of all of the single ticket buyers that attended during the study period, 66% of them were brand new. They had never stepped foot in the door of these venues before. 66%, that is a lot of patrons to have this opportunity with, right? Well, here's the problem. In this study period, we found that 75% of those new to files never returned again. That is the devastating story. So we're working so hard as a marketing team, as an organization, to bring in these new patrons, right? There's a constant churn of new patrons coming through our doors, and we're not even keeping three-quarters of them will never come again. So we're spending a lot of money to bring in new patrons and we'll never see them again, right? So what's the point? So that's why we're focusing on getting that second date, getting them back into our space. We want this attrition number to go down. We want them to come back because the more they come back, the longer they're going to stay, the more they're going to spend again. We're over prospecting and under retaining. And it's all about cost of sale. So cost of sale, something that if you're not already, we highly recommend you and your team think about when we're talking about your marketing campaigns. And cost of sale is simply, it's a math problem. Marketing expenses divided by projected revenue, right? So I'm spending this much divided by what I'm making. And TRG best practices in North America are that your cost of sales should be between 20 and 35%. I don't know how many times a week I have the conversation with organizations that they're underinvesting in their marketing efforts, right? You have to spend money to make money. I love the saying, you got to crack an egg to make an omelet, right? People aren't just going to show up because you are putting on the greatest performance of all time. They have to know about it. You have to invite them, right? So make sure that your cost of sale is correct for the budget that you have to work with and for your anticipated revenue goals. If you've got 100,000 single ticket goal, you're gonna have to spend some money to bring in those patrons. And here's why. So again, with that study group that I mentioned, this is the average spend for a single ticket buyer is around just under $54, right? The cost of sale of that is about 20%, and the renewal rate, right, the people who do come back is around 23%. Well, with a new subscriber, once we get them back and we convert them into becoming a subscriber, they typically would take a more affordable package. Maybe it's a choose your own, whatever it is. So we think their average spend is about $156. So hey, tripling the revenue that's coming in. The cost of sale is a little bit more because we have to work a little bit harder to convert a single ticket buyer, a multi-buyer, remember our evolution of a patron ladder, into a new subscriber. But look at that renewal rate, right? Once we decide to pop the question, so to speak, they're going to keep coming back each year and it gets even better, right? So renewing subscribers, once we have the opportunity to show them, hey, you belong here, you like it here, you should upgrade, get a better seat, a better package, more benefits, whatever it is, and your average patron spend climbs just enormously. And look at that cost of sale. The cost of sale to renew them each year is next to nothing, right? Because you're sending out your renewal messaging, your packet, if it's in the mail, if it's online, whatever your practice is, it costs so much less to renew those subscribers. And then those subscriber donors, and look at the renewal rates, right? The proof is in the pudding. They keep coming back. They keep coming back. They keep coming back. So it's all about that second date. That is the whole point here. We want to get them back, convert them into subscribers and donors for years to come. So we've got patrons slipping through this leaky bucket, right? Again, loyal customers, people, patrons who have attended more than one event are less expensive to acquire. Just reiterating what I just showed with those dollar figures. They spend more, right? So you're going to get more revenue per household, and sustainable growth starts with improved retention, of course. So instead of chasing all those acquisitions, right? Instead of putting all your money into billboards and digital display, trying to just get new people into your space, this is why we're begging the question, how are you retaining the people who are already showing up? And so we want to help you with that plan. That's what we're going to do in the next few minutes. So creating a plan for your new to files. I love this little image. I want to go into data. Okay, cool. So number one, you have to be able to identify who your new to files are. It's pretty simple, but not every organization is set up, whether it's your CRM. It's hard to identify who's never been before, who's a new to file, who's a first time ticket buyer. That's something you've just got to work out. You've got to work with your CRM manager, your expert on the database, and help identify that. We have a tool that can help with that. I'll show you. There are other tools out there. We just like the one that we have. It's called Data Center. Some of you use it. I'll show you that briefly in a minute. So identifying your new to files. Number two, after the first date, after their first performance, we recommend you ask them back right away. Ask them, send them an email while they're in the car ride. Someone said it in the comments. Send them that offer to come back, that invitation, as soon as possible. Can you give it to them while they're in your space, while they're at the theater? Recency is key, because why do people come to the performing arts? Because they want to have an emotional connection. Well, what better way to say, hey, you just had an emotional connection. You should come and have another one. Did you like how this made you feel? Well, hey, we have this other event in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, that you're also going to like. So ask them as soon as possible. Try to achieve that second date in 60 to 90 days. And Grace will share some data in a minute that we've been really thoughtfully paying attention to about retention strategies since COVID, in this post-COVID era, whatever it is. But best practice, try to get them back into your doors within 60 to 90 days, and just don't give up. Keep asking them. Create a quarterly new to file retention strategy. You keep asking them back. Don't give up. Be relentless. I don't know if that's good dating advice, honestly, but with your patrons, that's what you're going to want to do. We'll just leave that to performing arts. And then 4, and this is a big deal, give them a specific offer. Make it too good for them not to come back, right? Grace is going to go over some collateral examples of what we think are best practices, but hey, we really want you to come back, and we mean it so much. We're going to give you a 50% off your next performance, or we are going to give you a buy one, get one, whatever your team thinks is the best way to get someone back. But make it generous, a specific generous offer. And remember, this is, I like to say, everyone's job in a performing arts organization is marketing. We're all ambassadors for this organization, but make it an institutional-wide practice to consider new to files completely differently than your than your returning patrons. They're very special. They're very important. We really need to take care of them. And most importantly, we don't want to pounce, right? We don't want to ask them for a donation right away. We don't want to send telemarketing to ask them to take a subscription right away. This just happened to me recently. I went to a performing arts event in my city, and within a couple of days, I got a telemarketing phone call asking me to become a subscriber. You might say, hey, they're doing their job. For me, I wasn't sold yet. So I said no, right? I'm not addicted to your programming yet. I don't see myself fitting in there multiple times a year, because becoming a subscriber is a big investment. It's a financial investment, and it's an investment in my time. So we want to make sure we pop the question when it's time. So no donation asks, no telemarketing, no pouncing. This is a great place for a marketing team and a development team to come together, which is not always the easiest in organizations, right? It seems like we're working towards different goals. We're all working towards the same goal, right? So bringing these two teams together and saying, hey, we really want to make sure that our new-to-files receive right person, right message, right time strategy. And we're going to make sure that when it comes time to send out annual appeal requests, all of these kind of things, subscription offers, we're going to treat them differently because we know that we have this opportunity with them. Great. So all that being said, do you have a process for identifying your new-to-files? Is my question to you. We have a tool again, which can help you do that. It's not the only thing out there. Hopefully your CRM, whether you're on Tessitura, Spectrix, whatever you're on, can help you do that. We have this tool that can help you do it. I'm going to show you very quickly how Data Center can help you do it. If you're already a Data Center user, great. If not, let us know. We can always help you get signed up. So I created a campaign here. I'm using George Street Playhouse's account. They won't mind. There's no proprietary data that you'll see. And I created a campaign list. And all I had to do in here was I'm going to go in here and include, and if you've never seen Data Center, let me know. We'll slow down and show you a demo. But these are segments of past shows, right? Each production is its own segment, whether it's single ticket buyers, subscribers, etc. So I'm going to include to identify my 2024 new-to-files, my first-time single ticket buyers. I'm going to include all of my 2024 single ticket buyers. Here they are. I'm going to hit Shift, bring in all of these segments. These are all George Street Playhouse single ticket buyer segments. I'm going to add them. And what I've done in advance, kind of like a TV cooking show where they have like the already made roast in the oven, I've already gone ahead and suppressed all of my past segments. So all of my past single ticket segments, my subscriber segments, donor segments, etc. Because I only want to identify people who have never been here before, and this is their first event with us. So I found 1,186. This is my net count after deduplication. I have 1,186 new-to-files from FY24 to work with. This is probably kind of late to be doing that. I'd probably want to do this process after each production, identify each production's new-to-files. But just to show you, we have this tool that can help you do it. Regardless of which one you use, we just hope you identify your new-to-files. So I'm going to now turn it over to my friend Grace here. And Grace, if you want to start sharing, if you haven't already, Grace is going to take us further on this journey and say, okay, we've identified who these new-to-files are. What are we going to do for them? And Grace, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yep, perfect.
Andrew, would you be able to add me to the screen, please?
There you are.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Thanks for teeing that up, Andrew. So we're going to next talk through some of the operational ways that you can implement a new-to-file plan. So the first thing we'll look at is a flow chart of communications. As Andrew has been talking to you about not popping the question, not moving too quickly with these folks, this starts from the moment that they make that first purchase. If it's possible for you to segment out new to file people in an automated way so that as soon as they make that first purchase, they're immediately shunted into a separate segment, that's ideal. That we're not even putting them into the general sales communications in that window between the time they make their purchase and the time that they come to that performance that they've purchased. I saw in the chat that there was a comment that they're seeing high opt-out rates among new to file people. I'd be really curious to see if those opt-out rates are happening in that window between the purchase and the first visit, or if they're happening after. My hunch is that they're happening earlier, before the show. And so people are just saying, oh my gosh, I just bought a thing. I don't need to see everything that you have going on. I'm overwhelmed. I haven't even been there yet. Give me a minute to breathe. So if you can take them out of those communications from the start, that's great. So from there, once they do come to that first performance, as Andrew said earlier, we want to get them that offer to return, that second date invitation, as soon as possible. Ideally, have it hit their inbox while they're at the show or in the car on the way home or on the metro on the way home, so that they can just ride the high of that great experience that they had with you and go ahead and book their next experience in your theater. That first offer, we want that to be the best value that we show them in this flow of communications. We recommend doing a 50% off or a BOGO, something to that effect. Because this is a highly segmented campaign, you don't have to worry about this type of deep discount going out to your whole list. It's going just to this specific group of people, so we don't have to worry about undercutting value of other folks. Once we send that offer, they will either purchase something based on the offer or they won't. If they do make the purchase, you can see in green, we will send them over into the recent buyer. They become a recent buyer, so we put them now into the main communication stream for your marketing. If they don't purchase, we keep them in the blue path. And what we'll do next is initiate a quarterly new to file follow-up kind of sweep up process. What that looks like is that the second touch point, we do another % off. It's a little bit less enticing. It's 30% off now. We're trying to reinforce this idea that acting early, buying earlier, will always get you the best deal. And the longer you wait, the more you might have to pay and the less sweet those deals become. So the second touch point, 30% off. If they purchase, again, they go into the green bucket of just becoming a regular recent buyer. If they don't respond in that Q2 touch point, in Q3, we'll alternate now to $1 off. Some people respond better to $1 message versus a percentage message. So it's a good idea to mix up your strategies with these people who you have limited data on so far. Same thing, if they purchase, we'll take them out of the flow. If they don't purchase, the Q4 option is now reducing that percentage a bit more. It's 20% off now. And again, if they purchase, great. If they don't, now we've given it a good shot over the course of a year to get them back with these specific initiatives. And if they don't take us up on those offers, then we can put them into our general reactivation group, just like we would treat any other lapsed audience member. Anything that you're doing for those past 3 to 5 years or going to your whole database. All right, so next we're going to look at some data from the Arts and Culture Benchmark. If you're not familiar with the benchmark, this is a data set that TRG manages and studies. It includes transactional data from over 400 organizations worldwide who have their databases set up to feed us their transactions every day. So this gives us a window into industry-wide trends. So let's look at some data around new to file retention. Pre-COVID, we were seeing that the new to file churn rate, or the percent of new to files who were not coming back, was in the 62 to 80% range. Post-COVID, we've seen that number increase. It's now 80 to 95% of these new to file patrons didn't return from fiscal 22 into fiscal 23. So as Andrew's already teed up for us, it just means that we need to make this a priority to get these churn numbers down, these attrition numbers down, back to where we had them pre-COVID. And if we can exceed that, all the better. We want to acknowledge that programming is part of this too. So the strength of your programming, the mix of blockbusters and holiday programming and things that are that appeal to a wide audience will help you with this retention. But also, these new people are also going to be your niche and mission focused people as well. We just need to make sure that we're connecting them to the right art in the right moments. Here, what we're looking at is the percent of new to file patrons pre-COVID, 2018 to 2020, across all genres, all of the organizations in the benchmark, looking at the percent of those new to file patrons who returned to the organization in a certain time frame after their first visit. So to read this chart across the bottom, 0 represents the quarter in which they attended their first event. And then as we go across the x-axis, the 1 would means it's the quarter following their first event. Quarter 2 would be 3 to 6 months later, and so on. What we see is that the volume of patrons who are returning to the organization levels off around quarter 6, which is 18 months out. And at that point, pre-COVID, we had about 30% of those folks returning to the organization. Post-COVID, the curve looks the same, but the numbers are lower. At that point where it levels off around quarter 6, we're only at 13% of those folks returning. What's interesting next is if we split out this all genres data set from the holiday specific programming. What we see when we do that, and this now is looking specifically at the League of American Orchestras data set. What we see, again, quarter 0 is their first visit. What we see is at quarter 4 and at quarter 8, we have these spikes up in the rate of return, which indicates to us that people who come to the organization for the first time as a holiday attendee are more likely to get into this annual rhythm of attending your holiday programming year over year. We don't have flat lines between those windows. Certainly in the first year, we see it rising over time. So we're getting some people back. It's worth inviting them to non-holiday programming, especially in that first year. But if they haven't returned in the first year, once we're past that 1 year point, we'll get some back for holiday, and then it really does level out in year 2. But we get another bump for those people who skipped a year and then came back to holiday programming 2 years later. So worth keeping in mind to do that extra push, segmented messaging for your holiday programming, specifically talking to those people who were new to file for your holiday programming in prior years. So what does that actually look like when we think about collateral and the offer itself? We want these offers to be awesome. I already previewed a little bit what those percentages look like, but thinking about a programmatic approach to your new to file offers, we're going to look at a case study now from a producing regional theater. They had 12 performances in their season, and after each performance, they tried 3 different approaches. Some of those performances, they offered a carte blanche discount to anything else coming up in the season. Part of those performances, they offered a curated list of performances, 2 or 3 options where they could get the same amount off, but just to these 3 shows. And then the third approach was offering just one specific performance, and specifically a blockbuster, something with really broad appeal coming up later in the season. Same discount, just more specific of an offer. What they saw is that the more specific the offer, the better the return on their investment. So to read this, what we're seeing is that the blue are the performances, the offers where they just did a blanket discount. ROI in the way that it's presented here means 0% would be they spent $1 and they got $1 back. This 450% ROI basically means they spent $1 and they got $4.54 back per dollar that they put in expenses for this campaign, etc. So here, just the range, they even had one of these for the carte blanche that had a negative ROI, and it maxed out at 454%. And then the range here is for the featured list is much better. We don't have those low ROI examples. And then when they have a specific production, it's even better. Part of why this works is that we see the evidence that the more tailored and the more we can talk to a patron like we know them, the better the return is going to be. So you know this person's name, you know what performance they saw, what their first experience with you was. And so if we can reference that and offer them something that is tonally similar or in the same genre or the same featured artists, something like that, or the same art form if you're a presenting organization. If someone came to dance, then let's offer them dance for their second experience. If you're an orchestra and they came to pops, let's offer them back into pops. Classical, back into classical. That specificity we do see can be helpful. And then putting this into dollars, what we see is that the response rate was better for the two more tailored offers than for the any production offer. And what jumps out to me here also is the average spend. So for the specific production offer, it's 50% more for that average order size. Part of that could be because this specific production offer was for a blockbuster where they may be already into dynamic pricing, or at least only have the more expensive seats available if they're doing if they're managing their prices tightly. So there's a revenue upside to this as well. Next, we're going to talk about the patron experience and how, like you've put in the Q&A about when you decide to come back, this decision really starts from the moment they purchase their ticket. So keeping them out of the communications for other sales, like I mentioned, until they have that first experience is even part one before this. But then as we're approaching that first event, thinking about your pre-show communications and are you making this a seamless experience for these new to file folks who maybe have never been in your venue before. Things to keep in mind here is that if we can personalize it with a name, that is always great. And then thinking about the other just experience points that would make someone's shoulders go down a little bit as they plan their experience. Parking, will call or accessing digital tickets, security, bar and food offerings if you have that. If there's a pre or post show experience they could take advantage of, all those types of things, just laying them out very clearly pre-show. We have some clients who have a separate version of their pre-show email specifically for new to file folks, and the people who've been there before still get some of those tactical reminders, but they don't. There might be some special verbiage at the top of this email for new to file folks saying, hey, we know it's your first time you're coming. Here are some things we think you'll want to know to make your evening run smoothly. Once people are on site with you, this is a great opportunity to do some nice in-person touch points, a surprise and delight opportunity. This is an example from Boston Ballet, who had this card placed on the seats of the households who were new to file that night. So it's recognizing that they are new to file. It's a nice little warm welcome when they get to their seat. And it's also teeing up the 50% offer that they had for their second date strategy to retain these folks into their second visit. Some other touch points you can consider beyond just the seat card for new to file includes your curtain speech. If it's a blockbuster or if you have the analytics to be able to see that you have a high percent of new to file in the house that night, consider having people do a round of applause if it's their first night, giving that personal welcome from your ED or whoever does that announcement. Can your CRM scanner give you a pop-up message for the ushers to note when people get scanned in that they're a first timer? Even just that warm welcome can make a difference. And then your ticket design, if you can customize to include some of those tactical details, that's awesome. And then post-show, if you're able to segment your post-show survey list into one for new to files and one to everyone else, that can give you an insight into any snags or particular delights that your new to file folks have that are difficult to disentangle from what people who are experienced with you report. And then if your box office, if you find that they have downtime throughout their week, it can be a great just background project for them to do in that downtime, to just give people a call from your most recent production. Just ask them how their experience was. This isn't necessarily a sales call, but if it goes well, it can easily turn into one if they, if they read the room right in that call. But it's really more just to make sure that we are recognizing these people and keeping in touch. So moving on to some collateral for post-show, here's an example from Theater Cedar Rapids. This is a postcard that they sent immediately after the production of My Fair Lady to the folks who were new that night. Some interesting things to point out here is that this is personalized to these people in the sense that it says, hey, you joined us for My Fair Lady. We hope you had a great time. The artwork here is actually from the production that they just saw. Instead of, even though they're giving the offer to Elf the musical, they're not using Elf artwork. They're using My Fair Lady. We're trying to evoke that emotion and that positive experience that they just had to then remind them, oh yeah, that was great. Why don't we consider doing that again? And then they have this curated, a musical into a musical, a generous offer to a specific event, and also it has this deadline. We can see down here, hurry, this offer is only good until October 12th. So we're asking them to make this decision on a timeline, so hopefully they act and come back. So Theater Cedar Rapids, the next step, if people didn't respond to that first step, is this quarterly wrap-up now. So here's an example of that mid-season strategy. I love this example. I think it is just awesome. This face is so evocative, and it fits into Theater Cedar Rapids brand image. This is within the scope of what would be acceptable for them and their tone. So consider what this looks like for you, but don't be afraid to step away from production images and go with something more cheeky, more personal with these strategies. Here again, it's time bound. We have really bold messaging of the offer with the code and the deep discount. We're reinforcing the time-bound nature of this offer twice. And here we're adding the name as well. We're talking specifically to Caitlin. The copy is fun. And we are giving them a specific offer, but it's a different one now. We're mixing it up. All right. I will now hand it back over to Andrew to bring us home.
Thanks, Grace. Well, we hope that everyone learned a little something from today's presentation. I love this idea of using artwork from the experience they just had to evoke that emotion, right? This is an emotional business. This is the performing arts. We can have a little fun sometimes and remind people why they like it. But to wrap this all up, new to file retention is just an essential step. It's everybody's job in the organization. It's not just marketing's job. You tell them I said that. But building patron loyalty, it does start with that second date. It's the most crucial time just to get your new to files back into your space for that second date. Retention can be a multi-year process. So remember those post-COVID numbers that we looked at with Grace. Keep trying, but don't wait to start. You can start before they even attend your show. Don't give up, and make sure that you build in those quarterly touch points. Just, set it and forget it. Automate it as much as you can with your team, with those right offers, those big, bold, and right offers for the next thing, right? Remember the Netflix model. You like this, so you're going to like this. Feel free to use that in your quarterly messaging. And most importantly, remember our evolution of a patron ladder, right? Investing in loyalty helps the organization long-term. A lot of times our instinct is to focus on this one show that we're working on, right? We have a really, really big goal, and it's a make it or break it moment for us. Well, you have to be able to do both. You have to focus on this immediate single ticket goal ahead of you and focus on the longevity of the organization, right? Because think about those subscription renewal rate numbers and the overall household revenue that you can build while you're also having to pat your head and rub your stomach or whatever, right? You're having to bring in a new pipeline of patrons while we're retaining the other ones. So with that, we will take your questions. We would love your questions. I think they're going to be in, it looks like they're in the chat. So
I saw one earlier. I'll go ahead and address that one, Andrew. There
yeah,
was one about festivals and some things we have examples of clients that we work with who are in a festival format. And one thing that's common among them that they do is even segmenting their new to files between people from a local radius, and you define local in a way that's reasonable to you. We have one client in Chicago, and so they think about not just Chicago, but kind of the tri-state area up into Wisconsin and into Indiana, thinking about their local radius. And so they focus their efforts on those local folks who are more likely to be able to come back during the festival period than those who are from out of state and maybe were just in for the weekend, saw one part of your festival, and then headed out again. And then the other thing I would say with festivals is think about if you have other opportunities for them to engage throughout the year. So if you do any digital events in your off season, or you do a talkback or a free public event in the park on a small scale at some point, any other way that they can have a touch point with you before that festival comes around the next year is helping with that recency of engagement with those folks. So you can think outside the box as well.
nice. Here's a question. How do you balance wanting to create a personalized experience for new to file folks with knowing that a certain percentage of them have been before but just aren't in your database?
Yeah, I think here it's just not letting perfect be the enemy of good. Our databases are great. The more you can keep things clean and do your household merging and deduplicating on a quarterly basis or more often, if that's possible to you, just trying to keep things clean by household, that will really help cut down on that. But we know it's not going to be perfect. You'll occasionally have a few people who slip in there and oh no, they get a great deal. And so they're just going to come back another time for a few dollars less than they would otherwise. And I would say just even if you hear from that person, try not to let the anecdata of those small individual moments overwhelm the hundreds or thousands of people who you are getting the message to out appropriately throughout the season.
Yeah, just come back. We just want them to come back. Yeah. Someone mentioned that they've done this technique and there's an issue with direct mail, right? It's expensive to send direct mail. And leadership sometimes look at those budget lines and have issues with that. Grace, what would you say a good conversation would be there?
Yeah, with that, I would say just like we're alternating percent off and dollar off, we can think about alternating the channel that we use as well. So one thing we'll see frequently is that for that immediate message that goes out while they're in the theater, email is the best way to do that. So have that first wave offer be just via email. So maybe one goes out that night and then you repeat the email 2 or 3 days later. So your first wave that will likely scoop up a bunch of people, get that out with low cost of sale email. And then try, if you can commit with your leadership to doing 1 or 2 of those sweep ups later in the year as a direct mail piece, that's awesome. Even if you can beta test it with just one of your productions to do direct mail for that one and see if your return is better than it is with email alone, then you have some data to make an informed decision for how you handle everything else in your season.
Exactly. Think of the direct
learn.
mail. That direct mail is a personal invitation that comes to my house, and it usually sits on the kitchen counter for a week before I recycle it, right? Think of all those impressions that you're making. So important. Grace, we'll answer a couple more questions. Will you go to that next slide?
Yeah.
I just want to point out, just have it up on the screen. Grace and I are here because we love the performing arts. First of all, we want you all to succeed. So take this all think about it, and then if you're interested, schedule a call with us. We would love to chat with you and talk about how we can help you apply these concepts with your team, with your organizations. So you can scan that QR code right there, or just go to TRG website. You'll find us there as well. Okay, this is a good one. If you only have summer programming, this kind of goes back to that festival question. How do you keep patrons' attention and get them to return next summer?
Yeah, I think that's similar to the festival programming. If you have anything, even if it's a free local event or a digital way that they can engage with you, that's better. If you don't have anything like that, then your pace of communications throughout the year is probably slower, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk to people throughout the year. Your fundraising team probably has this on their mind in terms of how they think of donor stewardship, where once you get the gift, then you have a couple touch points through the year where you're talking about the impact that their gift is having on the organization and on the community. You can take that same kind of stewardship approach on the marketing side of things. So with these new to file folks, you don't want to be doing that monthly or very regularly, but just occasionally dropping in a couple touch points just to stay connected with people, but knowing that frequency or that recency of return is likely going to be on that annual cycle as opposed to that 30 to 60 day. And that's just what it'll be for your organization. So it's more important just to establish your benchmark of what is our new to file retention rate. And now you have a starting point. See next year if you can improve on that by a few percentage points.
Nice, nice. I'm looking in the Q&A. We'll answer a couple more questions. Yes, Laura, this is Grace touched on this a bit, but I think this is a crucial question. For the 50% offer, is there a difference in choosing a production that runs soon after the production they saw versus a production later in the year, but is more similar to the genre they saw? We don't have much programming yet, so our productions are spaced far apart in the year. Absolutely, absolutely. If I was just talking to some others, an organization about this, they were saying we have Bianca Del Rio, the drag queen, coming, and I'm making this up now, but the next weekend is Blues Clues live or whatever. It's like, no, of course we're not going to invite the Bianca Del Rio fans to come see Blues Clues live. That's not the next best offer for them. So your next offer, it's that Netflix, you liked this, so you're gonna like this thing. Even if there's a 6 week delta there, right? The next thing isn't for 6 weeks. We want to give them the biggest offer to the thing that's most gonna be sexiest to them, let's say. Grace, anything else to add there?
Yeah, so think about prioritizing them making the decision to return in that quick window. It doesn't mean that the show has to be very soon. We just want them to commit to coming back quickly.
Absolutely. Okay. I think we're going to leave it for today. Grace, if you'll go to the next slide. Up next, we have coming up very quickly, actually, just after the Labor Day holiday, if you're in the US, September 5th, Stephen, who is our Chief Marketing Officer, one of the most funniest and smartest guys I know, is going to talk about advocates. So remember that evolution of a patron ladder. Those are the people at the very top. So they're your board members, they're your high-level donors, they're your longtime subscribers. So join us for that. Link for registration is in the chat. Thank you, Grant. And you can always find it at our website and on our LinkedIn and all of that as well. So Grace, if you'll just go back one slide, again, schedule a call with Grace and I. We are here to help you. This is what we love to do. And we will hopefully see you again for a webinar. Have a great long holiday weekend if you're in the US, and keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great.